Good morning and welcome to the USA Cares podcast. I'm your host, Matt Castor. I am joined as always with Alexis Becker. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, Matt.
Well, you know, last time you weren't here and Stephanie Jones sat in. She did a great job, by the way.
She did. I listened to that episode.
She did a really good
fun.
job. I was proud of Steph. You know, you have some competition. And since you threaten to quit every day anyway, you know.
I'll go home right now.
I know. That's what you always tell me. But, you know, I was talking to Stephanie the other day, and we were talking about there might be a big announcement on the next podcast.
Indeed.
And she's like, oh, let's just say it. Let's just say it. But we held out. We bit our tongue. But why don't you tell us what the big announcement is that we just rolled out?
The big announcement was we kicked off 5 new chapters.
What?
Yep. 5 new chapters.
5 new cities are now part of the USA Cares family.
Yes, bringing our total to 17.
Absolutely. Right? Yep. 17 chapters. Right. So we are bringing on some fantastic chapters in Los Angeles, Mobile, Alabama, Northern Ohio, Dallas, and a new kind of a different chapter called the Blue Star Families chapter.
That one's not really city. It's everywhere because there are.
Yes.
It can be anywhere.
And you know what's cool about that one? Guess where that originated?
Where?
Right on this podcast.
That's right. Miss Leslie.
You know what?
And
that just occurred to me.
Shout out to Leslie.
Yeah,
getting that started.
Absolutely.
I think Trace was like, you're going to start this chapter. And she
Don't give him credit.
Don't
give him credit.
She didn't believe him. And here we are.
She didn't believe him.
And here we are.
Unbelievable. So we're excited. You know, this is a chance for those communities to really rally around their veterans and make a difference for some people that might be hurting.
Yeah.
So if you are new to the USA Cares podcast, this is a podcast all about serving our veterans. So we want to offer some encouragement and some hope. We're going to share some stories. We're going to have a good time. I hope you'll hit that subscribe button and make this part of your weekly routine. We'd love to have you join us every single week.
Yes, please.
So we have somebody we need to thank.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Just trying to make me talk
I wanted to drink my coffee, and so I'm hoping you'll buy me a second here.
Absolutely. Go ahead and take your drink.
I'll try not to sip too loud.
We are wanting to thank Hardee's they just wrapped up their Roundup campaign.
What is a Roundup campaign, Alexis?
So when you're going through the drive-thru and they ask you, do you want to round up for your total is $7.77, and you're like, okay, great. And they're like, do you want to round up to the next nearest dollar and donate that to a charity? And then, of course, you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Ours was that charity.
Yeah,
but
we are the whatever.
Yeah. You know, like people don't always pay attention, but I don't know how many, they had a lot of stores. It was like 150 stores. Yeah,
and this is West Coast, right? This is like California and Arizona.
Hardee's is all over, aren't they?
Yeah, they might be. Yes,
Carl's
they're
Jr.
all over. But
yeah, so we'll talk about Carl's Jr. in a second. But they were mostly West Coast. But I don't know if any on this side of the country did.
I don't know. We should have planned that out a little better as we talked about it. But
they, Hardee's and Carl's Jr. are huge supporters of USA Cares, and we, thank them so much for all of the support that they provide us. And right now, because it is February, and the entire month of February, if you go to a participating Carl's Jr. and you see our little flyer in the window, and if they don't ask you to round up, please tell them, I'd like to round up for USA Cares. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Hardee's and Carl's Jr. Not only the Roundup campaign, but really the Stars for Heroes program that they do for us every year. They're saving lives, just flat out saving lives and making a difference. So big thank you to them. So last week we had Nick Bush on. Fantastic episode. If you didn't get a chance to listen to it, it was kind of a surprise to me. It went in a direction that I didn't think it was going to go, and hit on some topics that were pretty powerful. So if you get a chance, give it a listen. Nick is a good friend of USA Cares, and we're honored that he would come on. Some of the people that are willing to share their stories always amazes me. We've had just some really powerful guests, and it's humbling that people with such powerful backgrounds and stories would want to come on and speak to an idiot like me. But they do. It is. So today is pretty cool. Had a chance to meet this gentleman, learn a little bit more about his story. Really a unique look at a military career.
Yes.
Like, this is not one that we have heard before. And you and I were listening to this, like, jaws dropping.
I had no words.
No
I
words.
was just completely speechless.
And I was supposed to be taking notes, and I was like completely distracted because it was powerful. So we would like to welcome to the USA Cares podcast for the first time, Marine Gunnery Sergeant, Chris Bussler. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
Great.
Welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have you.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
You know, we were talking a lot about different career paths in the military, and yours is one that is certainly unique. And so I was excited to talk to you because I think a lot of people don't know that a path like yours even exists, but it's so important.
Yeah, when I first joined in the Marines, I really didn't know that we even existed either. When I joined up with my unit, it was an infantry platoon with the military police unit.
Okay.
But when I showed up, they were like, hey, you won't be doing infantry stuff. You're going to be doing mortuary affairs.
What was your reaction to that?
Well, at first I thought, okay, so I'll be doing funeral details.
Right.
You know, taking the guy, the caskets out to the grave sites. And then I thought that, and they're like, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to be battlefield recovery and taking these guys and sending them home. And my first reaction was, this is not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But, you know, I thought, hey, I'm in a reserve unit. I'll never have to get deployed. This is right after the Gulf War. And then 10 years later, that's when 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up becoming one of the most senior guys in the Marine Corps that did this job. And so they ended up activating us and went to war.
So talk for a second about what a mortuary affairs officer is. You just hinted at it a little bit, but if there's somebody,
Yep.
Alexis and I are not veterans, and so we don't have a hard time playing dumb when it comes to a lot of these subjects. We're pretty good at it. So what is it that you did?
Okay. My job was to go out to the battlefield if the unit who took the loss could not recover the remains
Mm-hmm.
of one of their guys. So say if they are actively engaged in combat and they can't break away to take care of their fallen, or if it was such a catastrophic event like a gigantic IED, roadside
Mm-hmm.
bomb,
Mm-hmm.
and now you got you know, the vehicle and the remains spread out like 100 yards from each other, or you have like a helicopter that gets shot down, and they need a team of people who could do their own security and be able to get in and recover the remains and get out. You know, secure any kind of sensitive information, the personal effects, the remains, get a positive account, and then extract from there. From there, we would be going out back to our base, which is called the Mortuary Affairs Collection Point, and we would be doing all of the tentative identifications, first doing the paperwork that based of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we prepare the remains to be shipped out, and we ship the remains out on the flight out.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be we'll put the initial flag on the remains on the mobile casket called a transfer case, and then they'll fly the remains back to CONUS, which is Continental United States, over in Dover.
Okay.
And that's when those guys up in Dover take over.
So, Chris, how do you prepare yourself for a recovery? Because not only is it just a difficult job, but you're also still in a war zone.
Right. It is a pretty tough job because you run into so many different facets that you don't really think of. You have the tactical side where you're going out there to recover the remains, and you have the emotional side because you're working directly with the unit who took the loss. And, you know, you may have to run into different things that you don't really think of. You have to be a jack of all trades because you're going out there in a tactical situation. So we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. We'll go up there usually with as much ammunition as we can carry and as many remains pouches or we call remains pouches, but body bags as possible. And you go out there and you do recovery. Now, you get as much intel before you head out there to do, so you know what to expect and to minimize, having to improvise. But it's a pretty delicate job, to say the least.
So how many of these types of missions did you participate in?
On my third tour, we did, I want to say I did 5 of those.
Wow.
We recovered 13 U.S. servicemen, originally categorized as missing in action, and 1 third country national who worked for KBR.
Wow. And how many recoveries do you know how many recoveries you've done in your career?
Oh, well, it would be those, because when I did my my first tour,
yeah,
we lived on the side of the road because that's when we were invading Iraq.
Okay.
And we got more in the fights, the firefights and stuff like that than actually recoveries.
Gotcha.
We weren't taking that many losses.
Yeah.
But now there's different kinds of search recovery missions.
Okay.
You have the ones that I used to call hasty,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going out there on the scene. You have to get in and get out in the least amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
because the more time you spend out there, the more time that you have the bad guys coming up with plans on how to create more casualties. So you're going out there securing the guys and getting out. But then I have the detailed recoveries is when they take a vehicle that has been destroyed and they put them on a flatbed truck and they'll bring it out to a base, and then we'll go out there and break the vehicle apart.
Okay.
And we'll break the vehicle apart and recover all the remains that are in there and the personal effects that's inside.
Wow. So
you really don't want to leave any, vehicles or weapons or anything like that out there for the bad guys to use against us.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
That and all the vehicle parts.
Yep.
Even when these vehicles get blown up, all the vehicle parts, it gets recovered on its own, because that's stuff that the Iraqis or whoever's in that area could take and sell to the Chinese or the Russians or whoever wants to be able to copy our vehicles.
Wow. So wow. How do you keep yourself going? Like, this is, if you see really rough stuff every single day, how do you keep yourself in the right frame of mind to do this job?
Even though it was a super tough job to do, on all of the facets of being a leader, it's such a trying job. The thing that I always told my guys was that when we go out there and recover those remains, we're actually working for the families of the fallen.
Yeah.
So we want to do the best job we can to honor those guys who took that loss, honor the unit, honor the individual who lost his life, honor that family, because the best job we can do is to honor him. So, even though that it's a tough job, you gotta just say that if I was out here and I got killed, I would want Marines to come out there and recover me.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know we're going to do the best job we possibly can to get this guy home. There's something that's innate in the Marine Corps, is that we find it sacred to get these guys home.
Yeah.
You can look back over, like in the Korean War, at the Chosin Reservoir, where they wouldn't leave any of the fallen behind. The guys who got killed, they would just throw on top of a Jeep or a tank and keep on going. And so we want to honor that tradition of no one left behind.
Yeah. Are there missions that stick out to you that you're most proud of? Are there times when you were really proud of your team, really proud of the people that you work with for being able to accomplish what they accomplished?
Yes. Not so much of an individual mission, but more of when we have the quiet moments after those missions where you sit and you go over in your mind of all the things that you're asking your troops to do that it's not covered in any manuals. It's not covered in, nobody can prepare you to go out there and recover 7 guys on the side of a road that are, blown up by these gigantic IEDs. But they carry themselves with the utmost professionalism, and they take something that's so serious and so delicate, and they perform admirably. And even in the book, I do bring out these times where, wow, nobody could have ever prepared us for this mission, and we pushed through.
Yeah. Well, and it's got to be good. I would think as if I were a family member of a soldier, I can't imagine anything worse than not knowing what happened and not knowing where they were. And I would want to know all the details. So, I mean, you putting that puzzle together for many of these families has to be, at least you're offering them some closure. It doesn't make it easier, but at least you're offering them some closure, right?
One of the things that I pushed my guys, pushed my troops, was when we handle the fallen, we're not actually working for Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam may pay us, but when we're actually working for the families of the fallen, and we want to get these guys home the best way we possibly can. It's a tough job, and the hard thing is to keep these guys in the fight, as to say, even though that we're not actually in the fight, but to keep them in the job to get these guys home, and there's a lot of honor in that.
Do you ever have interactions with the family? Like, did you ever have a chance to speak with some of the family members? And I don't even know how to ask that question. Like, it's hard for me even to think through this process. What you've seen, what you've experienced is unimaginable to me. But I would have to think you would get some pretty good reactions from the family.
Yes. And the funny thing is that, they've read the book, and
really?
they can see that. Yep. In fact, there's 2 of the families that I made contact with, and there were 2 Marines who, one of them was a friend of one of our friends of the unit, and he was one of the EOD guys that I was pretty good friends with, and another guy who got killed 4 days after Master Angus did. When I was writing the book, I got in contact with their family members, their wives, and I told them what I was doing, and they were honored to give me all these pictures of them and when they were younger and stuff like that. So they became part of the story itself. But you see a lot of appreciation, and when I do these book signings, and every once in a while I'll get surprised by somebody who I may not have taken care of, that they lost a husband over in Iraq, but they want to show their appreciation because the level of care that we gave their loved one. One of the things that I wanted to do, and I went over in the book over and over, and one of the things that helped me feel good about the mission is that even though these guys had gotten killed in a place that hated them, and things were so dire, and it was crazy to be over there. But I wanted the last hands to touch them in Iraq to be caring hands. So after every time before we would put these guys into our refrigerator, and there already has the American flag on it, I would go around and inspect the flag, and I would touch the field of blue and white stars, and say a little quiet prayer. And, I wanted them to honor them as much as I could.
That's so powerful.
So, wow. It's something that was, sacred to us, that you're taking care of a hero, and you're honoring that sacrifice. And not only that sacrifice, but the sacrifice the families will have to endure, because even though that their loved one died in combat, it's the families that have to live with that for the rest of their lives.
Right. The other side of what you've done too, Chris, is that aside from your job, I mean, honestly, you've been on the front lines of history, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things that you've been able to witness in your time are historic.
Well, I never thought that I'd ever see that. When I first joined up, I was a reservist. I grew up in the military.
Yeah.
I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force. He was a 3-time veteran of Vietnam. My mom's from Thailand, because he was stationed over there. And so, I had all that growing up, back and forth to Japan, all that kind of stuff. So when I grew up, I wanted to, I knew I wanted to serve, but I didn't want to travel anymore.
Yeah.
I never had a place to call my own. So I decided to go into the reserves. And, and when you go in the reserves, especially right after the Gulf War, I never thought I'd ever see anything or do anything, outside of my 2 weeks in the summer or my one time in the month.
So much for that plan, huh?
But yeah, but when we got sent over to Kuwait, we were one of the first units over there. So we got to build a lot of the base, a lot of the Scud bunkers.
Wow.
And build up a lot of the tents and stuff for that area. But we were there when we first crossed over into the breach. I saw the very first bombs being hit, bombing, the impacts from the Kuwaiti side, the big flashes at night,
Wow.
because I remember that night, it was where I was sitting there. We're dug in on the holes on the Iraqi border, and you could see nothing. It was pitch black, and I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. And then I actually fell asleep, and I woke up to one of my Marines saying, "Can't you see it, Bus? We're bombing Saddam." And then I realized that the entire horizon was flashing like a storm in the distance that you couldn't hear, but you could see all these flashes going off. And you could probably count from their approximations where they were on the horizon. We're bombing like 12 different cities at one time.
Unbelievable.
And, as much as you tried to, you have all this bravado saying, yeah, we're going to go up there, we're going to get some, the Marines have been trained their entire lives wanting to get in the middle of this fight. And then all of a sudden you see the bombs going off, and they're talking about weapons of mass destruction and the good idea of that, the good case of that we could get hit with that, it made it all too real. And,
yeah.
But I got to be a part of that. See a lot of sights that I never thought I'd ever see, like these kids on the other side of the border were sitting there begging for food and begging for water and stuff, and they had no shoes on their feet, and you could see no other vehicle, no houses, no nothing as far as the eye could see. But these people made their way all the way from wherever they came from to the road to welcome the Americans in. And so they sat there waving at us.
Wow.
On my second tour, I was, attached to Weapons Company, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines. And a lot of those guys that, these are the same guys that took down the statue in Ferdo Square.
Yeah.
in 2003, and I got to be in a lot of these places and witness things that I never thought I'd ever see.
That's amazing. Truly amazing.
Yeah. So when you come home, after that third tour, what do you do then?
Yeah. What do you do? Like, how do you have a normal life?
See, that's the tough part. When you're over, you always have the next mission to keep you busy.
Yeah.
You struggled and you work hard to take care of your Marines the best way you can. Make sure that their mind is in the right frame of mind, and you see what we need to fix and what reports need to be written. So you never have a time to sit there and dwell on things. And when you come home, all the things that you suppress ends up coming up in your normal life.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing, because when we talk to veterans, especially ones who've been in some traumatic situations, one of the things they talk about are the triggers when they get home. And they'll talk about things that remind them of something else, right? Mm-hmm. Whether somebody drops a book and it makes a sound,
or a smell,
or a smell, or a song, or something. Did you have that experience?
Yes, all the time. I still have them. Just a few days ago, I walked into a Kroger, and they were cooking chicken, and the very first thought in my mind was that it was human flesh,
Wow.
a burned vehicle, or the burned bone. And as hard as I try to say no, it's fried chicken, in my mind was no, it's not. So I hurry up and I got to play the game of yes, no, and pick up the things I need to get, and then leave before everything just tumbles from there.
Yeah.
Another one that's hard for me is like burned wires, because you smell that from all the burned out vehicles that I worked with. When I went to lineman school to try to get a job as an electrical lineman, they also had burned out vehicles there for their firefighters class. You had to walk past them every day to get to where the poles are, so you can do where you can work on. And that smell of that burned metal and wire and all that stuff, I tried to avoid it. You can feel my heartbeat raising, and but you have to do it to be able to live. I can't live in fear for the rest of my life. So some days I can. It's easier than others. Some days I don't even want to think about it at all.
Like, there's moments when my wife will look at me if I'm deep in thought or something. She'll kind of know I'm going through something. Does your family know when those triggers hit? Know when you're going through something?
Yes. I am extremely lucky, to have the wife and the family that I do have. They decided when I came back home, that they were going to stick it out with me. And, for many years, my wife used to go to my mental therapy, over at the VA. And so she got to recognize a lot of my triggers, or things before I even realized what's going on. And she'll create that room where she'll create that distance, redirect where I need to go, or end the conversation, or whatever, and to help protect me, because I'm the one that she has to live with.
Yeah.
It's not saying that I have to live the rest of my life in fear. It's more of that we can recognize the situation before it gets to a point where it wrecks everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So everybody deals with PTSD differently, right? Everybody has. I struggle with this part because everybody has ways that they can deal with it. But the most tragic thing is when people don't deal with it and they internalize it and they just hang on to it. And that's the fight that USA Cares is in right now, trying to get people to seek the help that they need, to talk things out, to find whatever that therapeutic approach is. For some people, it may be a physical activity. For other people, it may be sitting and talking in a group. For you, it was writing, right?
Yep. The very first thing you need to recognize is that alcohol is not your friend. Being around people who turn that to a crutch, they don't have your best interest at heart. Everybody has a way of dealing with things. For me, it was writing and gardening. I never thought I'd ever become a writer or a gardener, but when I was going to the VFW and I ended up talking to a Vietnam veteran, and he was like, "I know what you need." And I was like, "What, another beer?" He goes, "No, you need to start writing." And so I ended up doing what he said when I woke up from a nightmare one night. And I sat there and I actually wrote 20 pages worth of what was going on in my head. And when I was finished with that, I was able to go to sleep.
Wow.
Without getting hammered. So I just kept on doing it. And then one day I ended up writing about my friend who got killed, Master Sergeant Angus, and what it was like to be there and to have to process his remains, and having to deal with the emotional side of it. And after a while, it started to feel good about that situation. And what it helped me was that me and my wife used to have all these fights because, she didn't know what was going on in my head. And, back then it was scary. I was scary to be around, and I didn't have the right words to explain what was going on. I mean, I didn't even know how to convey it. So when I wrote down that chapter, she could understand. At least she could empathize that, hey, yeah, you went through some really rough stuff. And when I got these different facets of these different experiences written down, they ended up reading it, and it really solidified our marriage, and it really helped our relationship out. That, because you can't ever explain to someone what war is like. Yeah. The news gets it wrong. The book, it's hard to convey it in the book. It's hard to see it in the movies. But if I could take her to experience something from my perspective of a situation that happened over there, it helped us out. So I now encourage people who have a rough time dealing with it. And, I say, you got to find something healthy to do. And for me, it was writing.
What's been the reaction to the book?
It's done very well. For somebody who's self-published, who doesn't have money to throw in to advertise or anything like that, it's done really well. It's won I want to say 10 different awards for the self-publishing community. I've been on podcasts like this one here, and Jocko Willink's podcast, and Marcus Luttrell's, guys that I would have never thought I'd ever meet or let alone talk to, and they think the book is pretty good. I was just trying to get these things out of my head so I can be able to sleep at night.
The reviews on Amazon are very good, and I don't know how you feel about reading reviews. That would be the worst part for me, is to have somebody write and like get a bad review. That would just crush me. But like they're all really, really, insightful too. You don't always get that. So I enjoyed reading the reviews, and even the professional reviews of the book too were just fascinating.
The funny thing is that my dad passed away 10 years ago. 11 years ago. And all through high school, he used to say that you got to get your grades up, and I passed English with like a D, and so, after all these different awards and all these great reviews for the book, and I could see him up there and have him sitting, smiling down, said, You were smart enough to get a lot better than a D. You were just lazy.
Look at me now, Dad.
That's right. Look at me now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Chris, were there any Marines or other soldiers that gave you any feedback on the book?
Yes, I've had a lot of people who served over there thank me for writing the book and explaining our side of combat. Guys who took the loss and were there when we were recovering the remains, now they got the other side of the story. They know that we did our best to send their friends home the best way we could. I actually had General Dunford, who was the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, who wrote a letter to me and said, "Hey, great book, and thank you for writing it." So it's got a lot of attention, and it's got, for somebody who's self-published, I'm astounded how far it's gone and how it continues to help other people. Like I said, I was just trying to get it out so I can have a place to put the experiences. And I really didn't understand until now, my experiences and my difficulties have helped other folks out with their PTSD and their experience, and they have a place for them to put their experiences.
Chris, I think people pick up on authenticity. They pick up on people being real, people being vulnerable, people being raw for a moment. And when you're able to do that, it is incredible how other people will respond, because so many people keep things bottled up and keep things locked up. And when they see somebody else who's willing to put it all out there, it encourages them to do the same thing. I mean, who knows how many people you've helped beyond the battlefield, beyond the families that you assisted, just since you've been home. I mean, that's got to be an incredible feeling.
It is. It's easy to get, caught up in the day-by-day stuff, but I get surprised by people reaching out and telling me what the book has done for them. People understand sacrifice. They don't think of sacrifice in a way, because that's what the main theme is. It's being there in these moments where these guys are being sent over to do a job that our nation has asked them to do. And a lot of these guys get deployed time after time after time away from their families. And these guys ended up making that sacrifice. Wow. And when they, when they get killed, and I bring to light also the sacrifice their families make. And yeah, to
me, I was thinking about this. You and I spoke last week along with Alexis, and I was thinking about your stories a lot. And I was thinking about, Alexis, you hear a headline saying we're sending 1,000 troops over to somewhere, or we're sending 2,000 troops. And to us, Chris, we don't always think about that. Okay, they're sending somebody overseas. Right. And this puts a whole new light on that.
Sure does.
Like, after talking to you, I don't know if I'll ever listen to a headline like that. I'll hear it the same way.
Right. That's one thing I wanted to do when I decided, yes, I'll go ahead and try to write a book. is I wanted to put a face to that name. I didn't want these guys to go over and get killed and just be a number on a whiteboard somewhere.
Yeah.
I wanted them to be somebody who you can identify that, yes, these guys these people are real people. They have real aspirations, real families, real kids, real relationships, real mortgages, car payments, jobs, and they put everything on hold and everything on the line for total strangers that they will probably never meet. And that right there is among the most noblest things that I could ever think of, is people who sacrifice everything, not only just, their lives, but, the well-being of their families.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what else to say. That's amazing. It was so much respect for you and for what you've done, and not only for the job that you did, but how you've handled it since being done. That's fantastic. What before we wrap up, Chris, is there anything else you want to mention? Anything else you want to mention today that you want to make sure that you talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a U.S. Marine from Vietnam, and this is the reason why that there is a mortuary affairs in the Marine Corps. That back in, I believe, in 1968, that there was a private Jackson from Atlanta, Georgia, who was with India Company, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines. They were on a fire base there in Vietnam, and they had an accident where the artillery powder bags lit on fire at their powder bag dump, and a lot of the Marines ended up getting hurt, and some of them killed. And somewhere along the way, some Marines said that he was last seen there at the base, and then some of them said they saw him in a helicopter. But somewhere along the way, they lost him. So if anybody out there, veterans of the Vietnam War, remember this Marine, please reach out to me, or reach out to somebody that this Private Jackson with India Company, 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines said, hey, we know where he is.
And this is something that your unit has just agreed that you're going to put out there anytime you can, right?
Right. Because my old Lieutenant Colonel Cassidy, we call him the architect of the mortuary affairs for the Marine Corps. It's something he's been working on for all these years. He's been wanting to get guys together to go over to Vietnam and try to find him. And of course, with COVID and everything, but it's a really big to do. It's going to be an extremely difficult thing, because the base that he was on was in the middle of a B-52 strike.
Wow. So
they're hoping to find something of this guy, and it's just a big mystery. So hopefully me getting this out would jog somebody's memory, and we can finally figure out where he is.
Yeah, we'll certainly put it out there. Yeah. And if anybody has information, you can certainly email it to info@usacares.org, and Chris will be sure to pass along anything that we find. But man, thank you.
Well,
thank you so much for doing this. Yeah, there it is. I see the book. Hold it up.
Here's the book.
Awesome. No tougher duty, no greater honor.
Yep, and you can find it on Amazon and on Kindle and on Audible. And the cool thing about being on Audible is my narrator is the same narrator who did American Sniper.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
And like 300 other books. And but yeah, it's please go out there and help support and buy somebody this book if you know veterans, and thank you very much for taking out the time to listen to me.
Man, this is awesome. Thank you so much. If anybody's listening, definitely get on Amazon today. Get on what was
Kindle.
Kindle, thank you.
Kindle?
Through Amazon.
Yeah.
Audible's great too, because it reads
is
it to
good.
you, and it gets your imagination just really going. I don't know.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Check out this book today, and it really is a work of art. It's doing a lot of good for a lot of people. Chris, man, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing your time with us today. I'd love to have you back in here in Louisville. Next time you're in Louisville, you stop by and see us. But man, it's an honor. Thank you. Alexis, we have those moments on this podcast where they're few and far between.
Yes.
Where I run out of words, but this is one that I warned you. I'm like, I am not going to know what to say here.
But sometimes it's okay. Like, sometimes it's good to just listen.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm blah, blah, blah. I think
Exactly.
it's great.
Exactly. So, if anybody's out there thinking, well, I want to know more about this guy, there's lots of stuff on the internet about him, but his book is powerful. So definitely check that out. There are so many aspects of the military that we just don't think about. And this has to be one of the toughest jobs I've ever heard of, to go into a combat zone and recover the fallen. Just such an honoring thing that he and his team were doing. So big thank you to Chris and for being on. So we've got a couple more guests coming up that are they're just some really strong stories. And if you're a fan of this podcast, which I hope you are, you definitely don't want to miss what's coming up in the next few weeks, because there's some just stories of overcoming, just some victory stories that we really want to share. And if you are a veteran, maybe you're going through a tough time. Maybe you've had some experiences in life that are just unimaginable, like Chris was describing, and you're having a hard time with it. I think Chris's advice was so strong to stay away from the bottle and just really focus on getting it out, whatever that method is, and find that outlet for you, whether it's writing, whether it's talking, whether it's sports, whether it's something else, but figure out what it is for you, and really work on getting it out of you so that you're not just having to live with it every day. So USA Cares stands ready to help veterans wherever we can. We support post 9/11 veterans who are having a difficult time. Maybe they're going through a transition from military to civilian life. Maybe they're having a hardship where they're in danger of losing their home or losing their job or their vehicle. And I would encourage you to check out usacares.org. There is an application process where they can apply for assistance, and we can usually get assistance to you if you qualify within 48 hours. So definitely make sure you check that out. Alexis, what else is going on?
What else? I don't know.
What's going on social media? What's going on out there?
Yeah, check us out on social media. We're always posting some fun content and some really interesting content, promoting some upcoming events.
Yeah.
We've got, for you gamer folks out here.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, we have a raffle. We're raffling off a custom badass, you don't have to cut that out, gaming PC made completely by the Toasty Bros. So if you're in the gaming community, you know exactly who these guys are. They're pretty awesome.
Check them out on YouTube, right?
Yep, YouTube. We have a video out. You watch them build the actual PC that we're raffling off. It's pretty awesome. And a huge thank you to Micro Center, who provided all of the parts for them for this computer.
That's pretty crazy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So raffle tickets are $30, and you can get them on our website at usacares.org.
At a time when you can't find this stuff.
Right. Yeah, the graphics card alone, I've been told, is just worth the $30 entry. So
I don't know anything about this stuff, but everybody tells me it's pretty hard to find.
Yeah,
and
that's what I've been told.
So.
It is really neat. So you can check out all the specs on our website. If you go under, I think it's the events tab and upcoming events, we've got that coming up. The drawing will be happening on March 17th. That is St. Paddy's Day at 10 a.m. So be sure to get your raffle tickets today.
Limited time and limited tickets. Exactly. So don't miss your chance.
Only 1,000 are going to be sold, and they're flying off the shelves, folks.
Yeah. So one last time, welcome to our friends in Los Angeles, Mobile, Alabama, Northern Ohio, Dallas, and to our new Blue Star chapter. Thank you to everybody who's made this possible. We are excited to hit these new markets, and to help out in any way we can. We hope to offer support to the veterans in that community. Thank you to everybody who makes this podcast happen. Thank you to
Speakeasy Podcast Network. They're our friends. They make us look good every week.
Which is hard to do.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, not me, but.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Me. Yeah.
Yes.
But they, if you or your company or organization is looking to do a podcast, check these guys out at
SpeakeasyNetwork.com.
Did we get it right, Robert? All right. We actually got the website right. So they are amazing. They are the best in the business. Definitely check them out. But thank you to everybody. Thank you for listening. Join us again next week. We'll have another great guest and share some stories and some encouragement. So see you then.
Toodaloo.